Would somebody like to make a motion to come back out of executive session?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right.
I'd like to make a motion to schedule a joint work session with the Planning Commission on March the 7th, 2022 at 4:30 in the afternoon to discuss setting development parameters for the Uptown Catalyst area. This session will be open to the public.
There's a motion and second. Further discussion?
Alternative date on Thursday the 10th. That doesn't work.
We can set that as an alternative date.
What time are we?
4:30.
On the 10th?
Well, 4:30 on the 7th.
4:30?
On the 7th, which is prior to our council meeting.
Any other discussion? On the motion? All right, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you all very much. Now, one last motion. Well, actually, we'll start now. Sorry, we were in executive session and we were coming out, so now we'll start our city council meeting. I'll start it off. It is Monday, February 21st, 2022. I call this meeting to order. We'll start off with the invocation and pledge. Councilmember Watt.
Bow our heads. Gracious and loving God, as we come together tonight, may we trust in the power of good to overcome evil and in the power of love to overcome hate. We pause to consider tonight those whose stories and needs are too often passed over. May we consider how your grace allows us to serve all members of our community. May we know your grace so that our hearts are not hardened to the challenges around us, but empowered to do what we know is right in your eyes. Help us devote our lives, our thoughts, and our energies to the task of making peace so that we may fulfill the potential for which we were created. In your name, amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Like I said, good evening. Thank you for being here. Our first item is a recognition of our Black History Month nominees. And I will start it off with reading the first one. We have some guests online. We greatly appreciate you calling in. So the first one, the recognition of service, is for Jerry Brown, who's online. And I see some claps. There you go. I like this. Already good. So whereas Jerry P. Brown was the first African-American varsity football quarterback during the 1971 and 72 season at D.W. Daniel High School and co-captain of the varsity basketball team, whereas during his tenure, Brown received numerous awards and recognition and was recently inducted in the 2021 Hall of Fame class at Daniel High School, whereas Brown was also the first African-American student body president of Daniel High School, as well as member of the Bader Club, French Club, Student Council, and the Block D Club. Whereas Brown is also a 6th degree black belt in karate. Impressive. Whereas after graduation, he enrolled at Clemson University from 1973 through 1978. And whereas Brown was a member of the Army ROTC program, which inspired his stint in the U.S. Army from 1978 until his retirement in 2007 as a full colonel. Thank you for your service. Whereas Brown is now a father of 3 daughters and a grandfather to 3 grandchildren who reside in New Hampshire with his college sweetheart wife and has been a proud business owner since 2014. Now, therefore, we, Clemson City Council, do hereby recognize Jerry P. Brown, his dedication to excellence and his service to our community and our country with the Black History Community Service Award. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause this official seal of the City of Clemson to be affixed this 21st day of February 2022. Congratulations. See the thumbs up. We will get you,
Is he able to speak?
can you, okay, there you go.
Would you like to say something, Mr. Brown?
I'm speechless, without words. I'm so just awed happening here tonight. Thank you guys so much. Thanks to council for those thoughts and those wonderful words, and all those that contributed to this effort. I couldn't be happier. I love Clemson, by the way.
And he's never speechless.
Well, we appreciate it. Thank you very much for everything. We will make sure you receive this in the future, so if you can see it somewhat. Just from a distance back there, actually. Yes, sir. Thank you again. We also have a second award nominee in recognition tonight, and I believe he's here over on the left-hand side in the pink polo shirt. Yeah, I think so. Look, I'm just, I see you over there. So our next proclamation of recognition of service is Jonathan Taveri. Sorry, I just said, Taylor. Whereas Jonathan Taylor is a 1995 graduate of Pendleton High School and a graduate of Southern Wesleyan University, where he earned a BA degree in psychology, and a member of the Southern Wesleyan University men's basketball team. Whereas he loves people and is especially concerned and involved with the well-being of the youth, and he devotes most of his spare time to helping others. Whereas he has worked as a counselor for the Upward Bound and a counselor for MAPS, M-A-P-P-S, a program for middle and high school youth, and volunteered as a basketball coach for the Central Clemson rec teams and for Carolina Thunder travel teams. Whereas he attends the Greater Faith Baptist Church, where he serves on the deacon board and oversees the church's long care outreach ministry for elderly citizens. Whereas he's also a member of the Pendleton Rhinos, which has done tremendous work in our community, thank you very much, where he serves as the Director of Community Service and Mentors. Whereas Taylor is always willing to help where he can and goes out of his way to do so, even by simply talking and calming down an upset and crying 2-year-old while his mother loads her groceries into the car. We've all seen that. I've seen them. I should say all, but I've seen that in action. Whereas today, Taylor is the owner and operator of 2 local businesses, Love Matters Teas and Mr. Right Lawn Care. Now, therefore, we, Clemson City Council, do hereby recognize Mr. Taylor and his dedication in making a life a little easier for his fellow humans in whatever ways he can with Black History Community Service Award. In witness whereof, I hereunto set my hand and cause the official seal of the City of Clemson to be affixed this 21st day of February 22nd. Would you like to come up and receive your award? A friend of mine that I get to run by his house. We're going to come around. Is that good? Tavari's actually, can I say one little side note? He allows me to run by his house, and he will wave occasionally here and there, but a lot of times he's working when I run by. But what a great guy. He's done a lot for our community, and we greatly appreciate it. So thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I think you got some family members here as well, so that's cool. So.
And my wife Dana, my son Tavari, and my son Bob.
Awesome. So come on up. Yeah, we're going to come around. I'm going to come around.
You don't got me this far.
I know.
Is his house at the beginning or the end of your run?
Yeah, this house near the end, so it's nice. It's nice.
Do you want, Beverly, do you want his family to come up?
This is your flag.
Yeah, no, the flash.
I love it. Thank you. Awesome. For everybody's Daniel still in the playoffs. Thanks for one of that. So don't get hurt.
To start off, Mayor Halfacre, Councilwoman Smith, and the resident members of the City Council of Clemson, I just want to say thank you. Wow. Wow is an understatement. You know, I'm not a limelight type person. So for them to kind of make this happen and get me out here, you know, I don't want to take up a whole lot of time. I just want to say I'm grateful to be recognized, because what I do, I don't do it for recognition. I'll share a quick little story with you. When I graduated from Southern Western, I wasn't even going to walk during graduation because my thing is not the limelight. It was our twins' birthday, so that's pretty much the reason I walked. I had to go borrow a cap and gown from a friend, and it was off color. But I say that to say this, you know, I do what I do because I love help, and that's my heart. So just want to say thank you again. Really appreciate you all. Thanks.
Thank you. Our next item is an added item that we're going to recognize the Reefs across America. And I think Melody's here, if I'm not mistaken, too. If you both would like to come up. Just to let everybody know, they had a wonderful event. Unfortunately, I cannot be there. It's my son's track meet. But with that said, I know you had a great event out at Nettles Park. Thank you very much. And you're going to give us a quick update, and we appreciate you being here.
Thank you. 4 Reach Across America coordinators from the upstate, and it represents also 4 Daughters of the American Revolution chapters. I'm Ann Mormon. This is Melody Jones. Melody chaired the event. Thanks to Mayor Halfacre, we were able to have the Reefs Across America Mobile Education Unit come to Nettles Park. We had 160 people came. We pinned 42 Vietnam veterans. We had an additional 20 veterans that were there, and 140 people went through the mobile education unit. We had beautiful weather. And the pinning was there was a commission formed by President Obama to recognize and welcome home the Vietnam veterans the way they deserved to be welcomed home, with a positive attitude and thanking them for their service so that we have our freedoms today. And then President Trump, one of his first duties in office, we were told, was he signed, again, the same proclamation, but he made one caveat, and that is he made March 29th Vietnam Veterans Day as a national holiday. So there's another opportunity to recognize them. We heard some of their stories. They received a challenge coin from Reefs Across America that had the Vietnam Wall on it and the Washington Monument on the front, and then an inscription on the back. They received a copy of the proclamation signed and this gold pin to wear on their lapel, and our group also received hats that said "Welcome Home" with the Reefs Across America symbol. And it's Reefs Across America's mission to change the way these Vietnam veterans are viewed and make a difference, and we believe that they were doing that. Melody's going to work with, what can I say his name? With Jim Mullinex at Clemson University to bring it back, the unit, onto campus. And people that came were just in awe, and I'm sure there's a few more Vietnam veterans that we haven't pinned yet. So we're working to get that to come back. And what we have today for Mayor Halfacre, we couldn't have done our ceremonies last year without the support, financial and personal support, of coming to these ceremonies. And so we wanted, there are 4 of us chapters, to personally thank Mayor Halfacre and the City of Clemson for all your support of Reefs Across America, with the goal of having a veterans wreath, December 17th this year, on every veteran's grave that we can find. So if you'd come down and do that.
Certainly.
And then
Well, all of City Council. So.
And we want to thank Jay and Christy at Nettles Park. Without them, we would not have this event. Thank
That's
you
Jay
so
Bennett
much.
and Christy. Yep, they absolutely, they're great. We're very fortunate. So, y'all want to come up? Everybody will come around City Council.
We're good.
Thank you very much, sir. Appreciate it. And we left business cards on your desk that you can put on your calendars and enroll in the events are this year.
All right, next item is public session. Councilmember Smith will lead public session. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everyone. We have a full house today, so it's good to see all your faces. Welcome to the City Council. This is an opportunity for you to speak to City Council about any issues that may be facing the city or that you might want us to be aware of. And some items that are not already on the policy and agenda items or action items that we will be talking about this evening. So if you would like to say something, feel free to come to the podium. We ask that you state your name and your address, and you will also sign in. You have about 3 minutes, each person who would like to speak. We limit that to 3 minutes so that we can give everybody an opportunity who wants to be heard to be heard. We also want you to know that we do care about what you're saying, so it may not seem like it, but we do not necessarily interact or engage back and forth, because we want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to speak. So this is that time to do that. And if you're online, you can call in. The number is 653-9886. And you just follow the prompt as you call in. Would anybody like to come to the podium and speak? This is your choice. Thank you.
I'll start us off. Good evening and good to see everyone. As likewise, I know y'all don't always want to see me, but that means I'm in town if I'm being seen. So Karen likes that part of it. You know, it's been a 2-year road here, and some of us just want to remind you guys what were visions. I'm sorry, Rick Ware, 100 Holiday West, Clemson. We just want to make sure our visions are kept. I want to first of all say I think you guys are doing a great job, and you can't turn a ship on a dime. You never will turn a ship. Running the city is like running a large corporation, and you can bring in new leadership, but it takes time. And we're being as patient as we can, and we know that y'all are doing what you can and how you can. I believe most of you are familiar with Falls Park in Greenville. And if you're not, if you haven't been there, you need to go there because it's really, really awesome. So back in 1967, the Carolina Foothills Garden Club reclaimed 26 acres of the current 32-acre park with the support of Greenville City, Furman University, and the Planning Commission. 23 years later, somewhere in the mid-'80s, the Carolina Foothills Garden Club and the City of Greenville adopted a master plan to restore the beauty of that area. 17 years later, in 2002, the Camperdown Bridge was removed. And in 2003, Mayor Knox White announced a $13 million transformation project, including the current suspension bridge, all funded by Greenville City hospitality tax. So how's this relevant to Clemson? Falls Park is the destination for Greenville. We want Clemson's Abernathy Park to be the destination for Clemson. The Lonely Planet says this about Falls Park, and I had to look up what Lonely Planet was, so I didn't know what that was, but it's a travel guide. It says, it starts right in town in Falls Park, inviting trails, gardens, Greek visitors, leading off to a revitalized Main Street with local shops, craft beer pubs, and a global array of restaurants. What it does not say there is it's leading into a bunch of housing projects. It's a park. In '67, the Garden Club had a vision and they developed a plan. It took 35 years to see that plan become reality. If we don't remain focused to creating a better Clemson and ardently protect this area, our generation will be remembered for being idle, fickle, and cahoots with the winds of wealth, allowing other groups of developers to usurp the area into the Clemson student housing kingdom. We will lose any opportunity to develop Abernathy Park as a destination for Clemson, offering culture, beauty, and vitality for our city. Again, Clemson's vision, Falls Park, was funded by a local hospitality tax.
Can you wrap up, sir? It's good that I want to be mindful, make sure we have 3 minutes. So if you can summarize, that would be great.
I'm done.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
That was it.
Appreciate what you said.
Elizabeth Vogt, 201 Martin Street. I realized the other night that I'm growing old in front of council because I was up here saying some of these things in my 40s, and now I'm in my 50s saying the same things. Let me make a few observations. There is no more apt metaphor for the current state of Clemson than when you drive across the bridge into Clemson from Oconee County and the Welcome to Clemson sign is behind buildings, scaffolding on dockside property. You can't even see the Welcome to Clemson sign. I think that's reflective of the state of where we are right now. And I think you all are fully aware of all of the dynamics and the problems going on, so I'd like to talk about what's going forward in the future. Because I think you have an opportunity to do something that is going to benefit this community. And I would ask you that as you consider development strategies plans, none of which I'm particularly fond of, ask yourself, does this build a better Clemson? Okay? Is this in line with what the community wants? And it is not our responsibility as citizens to make developers whole, according to development strategies. It is not our responsibility as citizens to provide luxury housing for students because their parents are affluent. It is the responsibility of city government to serve the needs and the long-term vision of this community. So ask yourself these questions as you consider these plans. Does it build a better Clemson? Is there not another path forward? And I would echo Rick's sentiments that what we need in Clemson is a destination, not more student housing. We need to create a venue where people want to come, they want to spend time. There are retail opportunities, there are dining opportunities, there is a reason to come to Clemson other than for athletic events. And so I would encourage you, and I thank you for your service, but I would encourage you to think about these questions going forward. It is this one opportunity that you have, and it will be the legacy of this council as to what happens to that parcel up there on Kiwi Trail. And I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Elaine Masseri. I live at 204 Wren Street in Clemson. And my subject tonight is proposed development for downtown Clemson. I'm here to speak on behalf of the residents who own homes on small parcels of land who are not interested in selling out for huge profits. The operable word is home. We are the folk who pay taxes in Clemson and expect to be able to access the roadways, stores, and restaurants in this town. Instead, we support businesses in other counties. Why? There is nothing downtown that interests us enough to navigate through the traffic congestion. Most of us want to do is avoid downtown Clemson at any cost. I would like to know how many property owners who have sold out at a premium either still live in Clemson or reside in the bubble of a gated community immune to being surrounded by towering parking garages. Lawsuits by developers have the effect of exposing bankers, lawyers, and landowners who have changed the face of our Clemson community. You decide if that has been for good or bad. We already see the evidence and know the answer. By the way, has anyone contacted the DOT to ask when the last inspection occurred for the Highway 123 bridge, which was built in the 1960s? I dare say it was not constructed for the weight of added cars, construction equipment, and semis, which is now the norm and will become more evident when the traffic light at Dockside is installed, extending cars into Oconee County. Thank you for your time.
I'm Tanya Hyatt. I now live at 110 Roslyn Drive in Clemson, and I just wanted to say something that I noticed when we started like the Build a Better Clemson project. We had, and this is something y'all don't really know about, but we had 2 posts on Facebook that referenced waterfront property in Clemson, and of those 2 posts, they generated 495 likes or loves, 26 comments, and 43 shares. And these are just posts about waterfront property in Clemson. Some of the things that were in those posts, it said, raise your hand if you want to see developments that consider our retirees and families. There's so much to enjoy in Clemson. Another part of the post, it talked about maybe proposing an arts district. Where could it go? And basically in these posts we're saying that there's actually the perfect place for something like this in Clemson, right on Lake Hartwell. We asked them, can you hear the music from the performances resonating over the waters? And then the comment says, the post that we made, there's no doubt this is a steep hill to climb, but I know if the city of Clemson residents get behind this, we could make this happen. Together, maybe we can make this dream become a reality. Your voice matters if you live, work, and play in Clemson. So again, that was 495 likes or loves on these 2 posts about waterfront property in Clemson, 26 comments, and 43 shares. And of all the posts that we post in Build Better Clemson, we got the most responses from the waterfront property posts. And I say all that, I know that I appreciate everything that you're doing. It's a lot of hard work. I think being where you are, what you do really makes a difference. And I'm going to leave you with Jane Goodall's quote, what you do makes a difference, and you have to decide what kind of difference that you want to make. And I appreciate what y'all are doing, but I just wanted to make sure the voices of those 495 likes and loves are heard at this city council meeting.
Good evening. My name is Chad Carson. I live at 213 Marks Circle, and know many of you and volunteer a lot in the community and love this community. And I'm here to talk about Uptown as well. And I concur with the idea that this is sort of a turning point or a decision point that I think 20, 30 years from now, we're all going to look back and say, this is a really important period of time. I think the message I want to convey, though, is someone who's been on the Clemson Next Committee. I can't count how many hours on discussing this, on listening, on offering ideas, on balancing the different sides of this. I don't think it's an either or this is a student development thing or it's a community thing. I want to emphasize that this is a really complicated puzzle, and I know, speaking to the choir here, that has a potential to be really amazing, and I hope it's something even better than downtown Falls Park. I think Clemson has a character and a uniqueness that can be something different, but I think the risk we have right now is seeing that this is either or, and there's a lot of people at the table now putting this puzzle together. There's property owners who have one point of view, there's community members who have a certain point of view, there's legal decisions have to be made, and I guess my offering for council members is just asking to make bold decisions. It's not easy to be in the position you're in. It's not easy to make decisions that are complicated. I also want to ask the landowners to be patient, that if this is a yes and thing that we can all benefit from, property owners have to be patient to allow decision makers and the community to get together. This is not a fast process. It's not an overnight process. But my hope is that in the end, it could be a better process for the property owners as well. And from the community standpoint, to get a bigger, better Abernathy Park, to get these things that we really want, part of the compromise, and the reason so many of us are going to have a bad taste in our mouth when we have a compromise, is that we all aren't going to get exactly what we want. But I really do believe that even with us all getting property, even if there is student housing downtown, which I personally think has to be part of it, it's been analyzed by a third-party consultant who had no axe to grind, who had no other agenda other than giving us an objective opinion, said that's part of what has to be done downtown in order to get all the other things that we as community members want. So I just want to convey that idea that I hope we make those bold decisions. Many of us probably won't be happy with the decision you make, given the nature of what you're having to do, but I thank you for your time and your willingness to dig into the complicated puzzle that we're looking at.
Any other comments?
Hi, you guys. I've been here before to talk to you. I'll take this down. My name's Charlie White. My wife and I live and have been living for about 30 years at 215 Kingsway in the Camelot subdivision. With the growth of the city population, off-campus student housing, and the traffic problems, I managed to do most of my necessary personal shopping and other related shopping, either in Anderson or Greenville, sometimes in Seneca, when my work would take me there, and it would be convenient to do that shopping while I was there. And not very much in Clemson, even though I'm a landowner and live in Clemson and pay taxes in Clemson. I kept up with my haircuts and what few I still get, and my dry cleaning and sports stuff and an occasional short bar trip. But I'd always have to add an extra 30 minutes to manage the traffic coming and going, which sometimes became a burden. When I heard about Clemson, Build a Better Clemson being put together, I quickly contacted them and decided to join. And until we presented you guys with the moratorium petitions, was very active in that organization. And I've been less activated, but I've tried to attend meetings where the Clemson Next was looking for feedback about proposals and things like that, and participated in those. Then when I retired from my career, I stopped doing all that travel. And it wasn't far travel, it's Anderson, Clemson, Greenville. but it didn't take me there, and so I was sort of pressed with, do I continue to do my shopping in Greenville and Anderson and Seneca, excuse me, and avoid Clemson and the traffic, or do I make an effort to do that and support city business? It's cost me some fines when I inadvertently parked in the only parking place that had limits on how long you could park to get a haircut. But at any rate, I've been very supportive of you guys, helped to elect a few of you, and think that for the most part everything's going pretty good. But it wasn't long ago when I saw part of a plan, not the full plan. I don't even know if what I was reading was yet set in stone. But one of the things that I read was about uptown Clemson. I just sort of look at downtown Clemson and uptown Clemson is sort of cute. But I don't know how effective it's going to be in terms of using it with those terms. But speaking about the uptown Clemson, one of the things that I read said that there was a likely proposal that there would be 1,800 beds for Clemson students somehow situated in that property. And I thought, oh my, the effort has lost its way. We were trying to get somebody to get control of student housing, particularly the really visible, high, ritzy sort of student housing. And lo and behold, this prestigious, neat piece of property that still exists. It's got a few businesses on it, but apparently those businesses may be able to go somewhere else, and we can really develop uptown Clemson as a great place. And we'll have nice views of the lake, easy access to the lake, and be able to enjoy that just shiny diamond that's sitting right inside our boundary.
Mr. White, I appreciate you sharing if you can summarize.
Oh,
because
yeah.
we're at time.
It's 3 minutes already.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Well, I'll conclude by saying I'm now kind of shocked and scared that if that is part of Uptown Clemson's plan, we'll have maybe 900 cars of the 1,800 people that will live there trying to work their way around in that congested section with all the other stuff that will go in there. We may not be able to see the lake unless we go right down and wade into the water to see it. And I just want to ask you guys to really give some better thought to whether something like that needs to be in that part of town. And I thank you for that.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other comments?
I'm Thomas Jones at 98 Holiday West. I wasn't planning to speak tonight, so forgive me if I get off track here. But I'm a little bit, first of all, I've been a resident of this town for 73 years. I helped make the JC Park downtown back when I was young in a JC. But anyway, I've been real concerned lately, and I don't know that I ever got an answer from this. But 2.5 years ago, I think it was brought up in the previous city council as a suggestion from planning that they have a density requirement on CP2. That never got done, and it's very evident by the mistake we made at Dockside there. But I would suggest if that hasn't been resolved, that it still needs to be looked at, and it may even be in this plan. I don't know. I haven't kept up with it. But that's part of our biggest problem in Clemson is density. And to have the density that we have in that 5 acres in front of us doesn't need to happen again. Thank you.
Any other comments? Audience? Now, I'll go ahead and read this statement into the record. My best to summarize it. Good morning. I wanted to forward this email to you. I am unable to attend your meeting tonight. I am in Charleston for 2 days. Please accept my email as my written plea to the city of Clemson to not allow more code minimum student housing projects to litter what little beauty that we have left in the downtown area. Just because a project claims to be luxury does not make it well constructed. In my experience, it simply means that the interior finishes will include granite countertops and stainless steel appliance, while a construction that actually matters will be moist sensitive 2x4 boards and oriented strand board that will rot if not properly protected. The last thing that Clemson needs is more student housing to junk up our once attractive downtown. I get a stomach ache when I drive on Short Crest and see the monster concrete parking garage in the backyards of a once desirable neighborhood street. At least we should not have to spend millions of dollars fixing construction defects of the concrete parking garage. This is submitted by Derek A. Hodge. I was just summarizing this. Yes.
My name is Katie Healy, and I live at 140 Folger Street. And the reason I hadn't said anything and I came up here at the last moment was the comment that Derek said about the unattractive parking deck. If any of you have not been down to Abernathy Park, I don't know how many of you go down there, the parking deck that is attached to the new apartments that are along College Avenue is this monolith, cement, hideous structure. And that is what you see when I walk my dog down to Abernathy Park, and you look up and you're like, oh my gosh, what is this thing that is the now backdrop to Abernathy Park and the lake? So if you look at that and you think, oh, wouldn't it be nice to have some more housing that's high-rise, any kind of housing that's high-rise, they will also probably bring with them more monstrosities of parking decks with them. So just with that note, that's all I want to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We don't have any calls to. Well, at this time, I will turn it back over to Mayor, and it ends our public session. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you again. Thank you for the comments, feedback. The next item is the approval of minutes, February 7th of 2022. Would somebody like to make a motion?
I move to approve minutes as written.
Second.
Okay, any further discussion, comments? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right, thank you very much. Next, we'll move to reports and discussion agenda items. And I believe our Clemson student representatives may have just had to slip out for Student Senate. I know we were running tight, but and I haven't met Sydney. Is Sydney here?
That is correct.
That's what I thought. Okay. So we will look at, hopefully in 2 weeks from now, to receive a report from the Clemson Student Representative Sydney, and I know Barry Huggins has designated somebody else now. So next, Chief, you just step right up. Receive the annual police report. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor, council members. I previously emailed our annual report to each of you. I just wanted to highlight a few things from the report and answer any questions you may have. First, if you're not aware, we are budgeted for 34 sworn officer positions for the Clemson Police Department from my position down. And we have 8 jailer dispatchers. They do both jobs. There are dispatchers for 911, and our answer 911 calls, and they also monitor our jail, which is what we call a level 1 facility, in which we can only detain someone there for 72 hours, I believe it is. Most of the time it's only 48, but they're there only for an arraignment, and then if they're remanded, they go to the county jail. Last year, our detectives handled 327 cases. This is a 25% increase from the previous year. On our seizures, one thing that was left out towards the end of December, we seized a 2004 Mazda 6 as part of a drug investigation, and that was recently awarded to the city through the courts. We handled 62,975 calls for service last year. 4,332 of those were 911 calls. The demographics you see in our report that talk about the prisoners housed, I will emphasize the numbers that you see there include the Clemson University arrests, so they're not just the city of Clemson arrests. When I pulled a separate query to show the percentages, if you look at just the city of Clemson arrests, almost 76% of them were male, 24% or so were female, about 74% were white, about 23% were black, 2.76 were Hispanic. The age range, 18 to 29 is about 40%, 30 to 64 is about 55%, and over 64, about 3%. So that kind of tells you the difference between our numbers combined with the university and our numbers by themselves. Our victim services, we have a victim advocate and a backup victim advocate. They serviced 522 victims last year. We participated in 22 community outreach events that ranged everything from going to career talks at schools to doing victim services events, child abuse events, movies at Patrick Square, and some of the events we coordinated with Parks and Recs with our trick-or-treat event and our Christmas event, those types of things. On one topic of discussion last year, we wrote, and I'll point out right now, in 2 different parts of this report, you'll see 2 different numbers. So 2,971 citations, traffic citations were written, 74 driving under the influence arrests were made, and we did 710 traffic collisions, 57 of which had injuries. In another part of our report, when you look at our bias-based profiling, it shows 3,257 citations written. Our records management system has difficulty separating these things because we use citations also for our minors in possession and other minor misdemeanor offenses. So when we run that query, it's not always exact as to which is actually traffic offense and which is not. So the 2,900 number came from what the officers reported to us that they wrote, and the 3,200 number came from when we ran that automated report from the system. Let's see. Pretty much, the report goes on to show when we use force in response to resistance and what we use. As you know, we implemented the taser last year. It was after the beginning of the fiscal year. I think it was October when everybody was finally trained and had them. So we only had one instance when it was used, and did not work because it did not land, and that was the only time that we had to deploy the taser this past year. You also see in here how many pursuits we get into in the year. Our total pursuits for the year, I believe, is 12. So we don't have very many of those. When we were talking about citations earlier, we did conduct 5,000 traffic stops last year. So many of our officers are enforcing traffic, but they're issuing warnings versus citations in a lot of cases. I think that's the majority of what I wanted to review. If anyone has any, one correction that has to be made. When we talk about our Part 1 crimes, we showed a negative 36% change in larcenies compared to last year. That was incorrect. It's a 65% increase. It's not a negative number. So we had 313, where in 2020 we had 190. And a lot of what's in the larceny category are theft from vehicles. So unlocked cars being rummaged through is the majority of that number. And if anybody has any questions, I'll try to answer them for you.
Chief, was there anything in here, as I'm going through everything, that stood out to you as a surprise that you want to address in 2022?
Not necessarily a surprise as much as we start to go back to normal, we're starting to see some of the same things that we saw in 2019 and 2018 start to rise back up again. And that has to do with there's more people coming in and out of Clemson. One of the biggest struggles that I have right now, and I've talked about it before, is staffing and trying to stay as close to full staff as possible. I currently have 3 vacancies, and I received 2 resignations in the last week, so I'll have 5 here shortly. And I have 2 that are in training in the academy. So that's basically 7 that I'm down out of 34. So
that's a big deal.
Yeah. So when we try to address these things, we also have to take our staffing resources into account.
For the resignations, because of one of the other agencies?
Yes. However, one of the resignations, the person's spouse took a position in the lower part of the state and had moved. So they are going to another agency, but they're following the spouse with that job.
Any other questions, comments? Chief, thanks for keeping us safe.
Thank you very much.
Let us know how we can help, what you did. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next item is to receive a report from our city engineer and community economic development coordinator concerning the 2022 alternative transportation week proposal. Nathan. Thank you.
Good evening. Lindsay told me I could present by myself. So, working with the Friends of the Green Crescent Trail, we want to propose the date of March 28th to April 3rd for alternative transportation week. We've worked with CAT, Parks and Rec, and everything for the proposed schedule for the events. We just kind of want to run it by council, make sure that they're aware of what we're being proposed, and make sure in general that everybody has, if there's any questions, we'll be able to answer them. Carrie and Shannon are both here to represent Friends of the Green Crescent Trail. And then what we're looking for is next year is kind of looking at an expanded schedule of events, but in general this year is very limited, but trying to just get the word out of what's going on, and hopefully we'll have some more on the ground features to be able to kind of celebrate in the future. If there's any questions, I can take them.
Questions for Nathan?
So the event on April 1st, is it just going to the university, or is it going to be also on campus, or just walking to the university?
It's like a walk and ride. The university's trying to encourage their students to use all their means to get to the university for classes. are they setting up a table? I know they were. I know they were
Yeah, I was
talking about
talking
setting
about
up.
where the tables are.
Yeah. So they'll just be kind of in set locations that they're going to put out on their social media means to be able to notify students they can stop by and get information.
If there are no other comments, questions, thank you, Nathan, for the update.
Thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Next, we'll go to item D. Before we do that, I'm gonna have to slip out just for a little bit. Maybe that's what you need. Sorry. I have my son's two best friends are getting equal court honor. I'm just going to attend for a few minutes and then coming back. So, Councilmember Smith was gracious enough to step in for me, so I'm gonna slip out just hopefully. I'll be finished before I get back, but you don't know. So. We don't know. So.
Discuss local conditions and assess the need to reinstate the map.
So, as last meeting, I said, I think things seem to be leveling off and maybe decreasing. So at this point, as long as Mary keeps up to date, we'll stay vigilant. I'm not going to recommend any changes.
All right. Thank you for that. Next, E, receive a progress report on the Clemson Next updates. Allison.
Thank you. I am here to give you all an update on staff and our commission and board's efforts towards researching and executing the white paper recommendations adopted by council. The full report card can be found online on the homepage of ClemsonNext.com, and it has also been sent via email to all the Clemson Next participants. And staff intends to update the report card periodically as meetings and progress takes place. For the report card, the recommendations from the white paper were broken down into 5 categories. I'm going to briefly highlight progress that is happening in each category. First, in business and economic development. It was recommended from the white paper to establish a community-based incubator or other entity to strengthen innovation and entrepreneurship. The city is exploring opportunities for an incubator space in the downtown area. And to make this incubator space possible, the city is pursuing partnerships with the Clemson Area Chamber as well as the higher ed institutions in our area. Next, in the land use and development category, I'll be touching on the recommendation of exploring opportunities for partnerships with the relevant university programs. We had hoped to hear tonight from the Student Senate about future collaboration opportunities, and hopefully we'll hear from them next month. But the JCUAB continues to meet regularly to discuss opportunities for collaboration and how to handle the town and gown issues. Just this week, Andy, myself, and Lindsay met with Ken Robinson's class at a few locations around town exploring ideas for potential for future projects. On to the traffic, transit, and transportation. The white paper recommended working with Clemson University and neighboring jurisdictions to expand contributions to the CAT bus system and expand the bus system itself, focusing on the frequency of buses, expanded routes, and coordination of all systems. Each year, as we negotiate our service contract with our partners, we evaluate the level of service and routes that are being provided. And staff is studying additional revenue sources for transportation services. These include metered parking, impact fees, service fees, and advertising. Each of these potential revenue streams would be invested back into transit. The next recommendation was to fund and find partners to conduct a regional traffic study along Highway 123. And I am pleased to report that staff will be applying for GPATS funding next month to fund the regional traffic study. Another recommendation was to create standard citywide wayfinding signage, clearly indicating the location of bike and walking paths, access to bus stops, routes to parks and transportation hubs, and integrate it with the community-used digital wayfinding applications for transit, traffic, and recreation. A small pilot project centered on the Green Crescent Trail route has been installed. The system will be sent to the IT department so it can be tested on the My Civic app for integration. The Public Works Subcommittee of the JCUAB is discussing a universal wayfinding system for the Clemson area. Another recommendation was to encourage Clemson University to reestablish policies restricting commuter parking on campus and reducing the number of freshmen with cars. Discussion about Clemson University's off-campus and transit plan began last week at the JCUAB Transportation Subcommittee meeting, and staff will continue to work with the university to try to find a solution. Next, it was recommended to prioritize funding initiatives that improve the walking and biking connections between the city and campus, especially along Highway 93 and College Avenue 133 to the Old Calhoun neighborhood. The city is looking for grant opportunities to help fund a large portion of major sections of the Green Crescent Trail through one inclusive grant that includes connections to neighboring jurisdictions. In the future, we hope to be able to fund $400,000 annually towards the Green Crescent Trail. The funding strategy to make this happen will be a mix of city funds, General Assembly allocated funds, and South Carolina Transit grant funds. Next, T10, continue to add and upgrade bike and pedestrian pathways in neighborhoods. Design of Phase 1 of the Green Crescent Trail is complete, and we plan on construction to begin later this year. This is from Berkeley Drive to Gateway Park. And we anticipate the pump bike track at Gateway Park to be completed and open this spring. Foster a culture of alternative transportation focused on biking and walking. As we just heard from Nathan, the 2022 Alternative Transportation Week has been planned and is set for the week of March 28th. We will continue to work to utilize arts and culture as a way to promote alternative transportation. The Public Arts and Culture Commission will work to strategically place public art in areas to draw people to bike and walk to see it. The next is university relationships and partnerships. It was recommended to establish a sustained university commitment to collaboration with the city. And the mayor is having regular discussions with Clemson University's President Clement's executive team, and he will continue to do so to maintain a consistent presence moving forward. Next is workforce, non-student housing, and neighborhood planning. As we have worked through the Clemson Next white pages and Uptown process, it has become evident that affordable housing, non-student housing, storefront retail is not going to happen on its own. To make this happen is going to take initiatives and incentives. Part of the Uptown process is to decide what we are willing to allow in terms of development, location, density, to make what we want happen. And as I mentioned before, staff intends to update the report card as meetings in progress take place, and we do urge our citizens, our community, our council to view it regularly to check for the updates of the Clemson Next project.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, Councilman?
So just a comment, thanks for doing this. I think it's important that we document, we move forward, and we succeed, and we do things. I'm accused of too much planning and enough action. I think this indicates that there is action taken on, so thanks for putting this together.
Thank you so much. Appreciate you providing that information. Next, we have staff reports.
The Pickens County Municipal Association is going to start meeting again next week, Monday the 28th, 6 o'clock. If you want to ride together, I'll have a van here for the CAT. Meet here at City Hall, or you can just meet us there, drive directly if you like. You don't have to let anyone know. I'll just have the van here, and whoever shows up at 5:30 will ride. That's all I have. Too easy.
Thank you. Next, we'll move to policy and action agenda items. First is on there to consider second reading of an ordinance to edit the comprehensive plan, section 15-21, to clean up formatting, numbering, grammatical errors, and to remove redundancies. Todd?
There have been no changes since the first reading and no public comments.
No changes, no additions? Anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion we approve second reading of an edit to the comprehensive plan to clean up formatting, numbering, grammatical errors, and to remove redundancies as presented.
Second.
You got that, Beverly? The second. All right. Any discussion? All right. No discussion. All in favor? Thank you. Next, consider second reading of the ordinance to amend the Housing and Community Life Committee, section 15-6, clarifying residency eligibility to include the Bishop Branch voting district in Anderson County. Lindsay?
There have been no changes since the first reading.
And I think to clarify, because then we have an email somewhere, I mean, while the whole district is shown there, it's just a portion within the city of Clemson.
When you read the definition that includes Bishop Branch, in the narrative, it says that you must be a resident of the city.
I know, I'm just clarifying
Yeah.
that, because some people looked in that, I think, so.
All right. Anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion we approve a second reading of an ordinance to amend the Housing and Community Life Committee, section 15-6, clarifying residency eligibility to include the Bishop Branch voting district in Anderson County as presented.
Second.
Motion, motion and second. Any discussion? Okay, all in favor, raise your right hand. All right, moving on. Consider the first reading of an ordinance to amend the city code for special events, business licenses, in chapter 12, occupational licenses, taxes, regulations. Beverly?
As we discussed at the last meeting, this is just to clean up the ordinance. You do have a cleaner copy this time. Looks a lot better. But the added information is just to have one license for the host and not have multiple licenses for all vendors. Just makes it a simpler process for everyone involved.
Any questions for Beverly? If not, anybody like to make a motion?
Make a motion to approve first reading of an ordinance to amend the city code for special events, business licenses as presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, raise your right hand. Last, policy action is consider any action necessary to respond to COVID-19. Councilmember McGuire stepped out, so I think we can move on to the next item since there are no changes. Resolution, consider a resolution directing the planning commission to conduct a review of and make recommendations for the amended capital improvements plan and revised impact fee ordinance in accordance with South Carolina Development Fee Act. Allison.
All right, so the Development Impact Fee Act allows cities and counties by ordinance to require the payment of a fee by a developer as a condition of development approval in exchange for an impact that the fee will have on the city and the area that they serve. The South Carolina Development Impact Fee Act limits the impact fee rates imposed on developers to no more than the proportionate share of the cost of capital improvements to public facilities that provide service within the city. The statute defines public facilities including water, sewer, garbage collection and disposal, stormwater, roads, public safety, street lighting, capital equipment, and parks and recreation. The amount of impact fees must be based on the actual cost of improvements or professionally produced cost estimate. The city implemented development impact fees in 1995, and with the exception of water and sewer, the impact fees have not been evaluated since then. City staff believes the current grandfather fees are not sufficient to keep up with the capital needs being created by the city's growth. The legality and required process for updating the development impact fee system is expressed in the South Carolina Development Impact Fee Act, and this process begins with a resolution of council directing the Planning Commission to conduct the necessary studies, analysis, and then to provide the council with an impact fee ordinance that is in compliance with the requirements of the act. Upon passage of this resolution, the Planning Commission will work with city staff to oversee the preparation and acquisition of a firm who will be required to develop a proposed capital improvements plan or recommended updates to our existing plan, an affordable housing analysis, and an impact fee structure related to the capital improvements plan, as well as write the impact fee ordinance which complies with South Carolina statute. Upon completion, the Planning Commission will then recommend the final document for approval by council. Any questions?
Are there any questions for Alice?
I had a question, Andy, and we talked about this earlier. Were you able to get any? My question was kind of like we had the pending ordinance status for something maybe come along. Was there a way to go ahead and name a fee to be substantiated by the report, just so something were to come along during the way? Can we do that, or is it?
I don't think we can. The statute the act is very specific as to the steps that we have to take to reach the figure that we then apply the proportionate analysis to determine we have to do the capital improvements plan, or you can use your comprehensive plan depending on what type of service it is, and then you have to do an engineering study to determine the impact of whatever the new development's needs are for that use of that service.
So I can find an interim study, so based on our data or something.
Yeah, I wish it would go more quickly, but it's a very limited statute act. It limits local government's ability to come up with their own impact fees just by listing the specific things. And I think Allie, she addressed those specific things that you can impose impact fees on. There is a bill pending right now before the legislature, but I hesitate to talk about bills because you never know if they're ever going to come apart. But there is one to expand the development impact fees to fire protection services to allow you to really do a lot more with that. But I don't want to talk about it because I never know what the legislature is going to do. But right now it's pretty limited, and I do recommend that you go through the analysis parts to reach that because other towns and counties have gotten in trouble for not doing that. Other questions?
I was going to make a motion if you're ready.
No other questions? Yes.
I'd like to make a motion that we approve a resolution directing the Planning Commission to conduct a review of I just lost it on the thing here. A review of and make recommendations for an amended capital improvements plan and revised impact fee ordinance in accordance with South Carolina Development Fee Act as quickly as possible.
Second.
Is there any discussion?
They go faster in both Bob's.
Yeah, go fast.
All in favor? Raise your right hand. Okay. And last policy item is considered, under other policy items, consider a second amendment to the shared parking agreement for the Shepherd Hotel.
To give council just a little reminder and background, in 2019, the Shepherd Hotel was in their permitting phase, and that in our C district downtown, the only two types of businesses that require parking are residences and hotels. And as a result of that we began looking at how they could accommodate or fulfill their parking requirement since they did not have on-site parking. And they proposed through the ordinance what is called a shared parking agreement that satisfied their parking requirements as the hotel was designed at that time. And that was brought to council and approved in 2019, which gave them the confidence to move forward with their project. And then it was amended shortly thereafter, primarily for clarification of at what point a business at the Astro would have to be in place for or what would happen if a business was not open at the Astro Theater. So the council refined and amended that agreement about a month after they initially approved it in 2019. Late last year, the Shepherd Hotel representatives had decided they wanted to try to use the rooftop as an event space, and they came to the Board of Architectural Review after staff vetted that what they were proposing met all ordinances and standards, other than the architectural, that's not up to us. And the BAR approved the plan, made some modifications, but they worked together to come up with a plan that met code and satisfied the Board of Architectural Review. However, in doing so, it increased the parking requirements for the hotel. And so what tonight is to amend the ordinance to change the total number of parking that has to be satisfied through the shared parking agreement. This increase in parking does not necessitate a change in the previously approved site plan for the Astro, which included surface parking spaces and robotic parking, which the BAR worked with the developer to create a shroud, so it's not just a machine out there, that it's screened from both 93 or from College Avenue and from Shorecrest. So there's no change to any site plans, but there would just be a change. What is before you tonight is to standardize or formalize the amount of parking that has to be provided at the Astro site in order to satisfy the parking requirements of the hotel now that they've added an event space on the roof. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
So Todd, did the BAR not consider the parking issue in their deliberations, or they did consider parking when they made the decision?
Generally speaking, they don't if parking was not a requirement in that area. Since it wasn't on that site, the BAR approval came with two specific stipulations. One was that the developer update the shared parking agreement. They knew they already had one, and the developer had demonstrated that they had the capacity at the Astro site to accommodate this new parking. So, but the BAR said this only works if this gets parking agreement gets amended. And the second thing was we requested a as-built survey that validated that when all is said and done, that we'll have a stamped and sealed survey that the building height does not exceed the downtown standards.
So if we, I guess I'm trying to figure out what's the effect if we vote no. If we vote no, does that mean the hotel can't use that rooftop event space? What's the impact of the no vote?
That would be the net effect.
It seems kind of backwards. It seems like we're building a short
It's just an awful position to do it this way.
Okay, so how many spaces can they have at the Astro now?
I think the total is they have capacity for they have capacity for 122 and they need 114. They're building more they're building the stackers, and they were approved for, I think, 16 stackers, and they only need 12.
So, based on what you just said, you said 100. They got 100.
I think that is correct. That they've been approved and have a plan that would accommodate 122 vehicles.
So, how many rooms are in a hotel?
67.
That's what I thought. So, one car per room.
Correct.
Okay, so then would there not be enough parking left over for this event space?
No, because the site also shares the old Astro building.
Okay.
Which is
all
going
will share.
Yeah.
So,
it's
the stark reality of this. Okay. So whatever event we have there, it's not going to be an overnight event, so it's not going to be overnight cars.
I can't answer that question. I would imagine that some of the events may be related to guests of the hotel, perhaps a wedding, and there will probably be some events that are not related to the hotel at all.
But the point I'm trying to make is this. This is a stark reality no matter what we do here, is if there's 100 guests, then they're going to be parking in the parking deck and be parking at the Lutheran Church and whatever the case may be, no matter what we say.
But this is in addition to that part. This is over and above that number.
But, well, I don't know.
What's the capacity of the event space again? Hey, Todd? They might have.
Yeah, I believe that Abby Trammell, who's one of the representatives for the developer, can better answer that question. I can't recall, but I know I think that they needed 41 or more spaces, and so I think that was around.
What's the capacity of, like, how many people could be at an event on the roof?
Again, I'm going to have her answer that.
Okay. And then one more quick question before we get to that. What was the order of operations that occurred when the hotel decided to put this event space on the roof? Did they follow city procedure in doing that correctly along the way?
Yes. They made the request, they submitted the plans were approved from a structural architectural standpoint, or zoning standpoint, and then they went through the BAR approval for the aesthetic aspect of it as well.
Just
They
on
followed
the
the building,
parking.
just didn't get their parking ducks in a row.
I'm sorry.
They followed the building process for this, didn't get their parking
That's not
ducks
the
in a row.
parking process.
Well, correct. The only part of the parking process they demonstrated, we went round and round on validating that in conjunction with the development of the hotel, they also submitted a site plan for the Astro site, which included demonstrating how they were going to satisfy the parking requirements for the hotel and the parking requirements for the Astro building. And that was approved, again, through the BAR and through, that hasn't been submitted for building yet because they haven't started the construction on the site plan yet for the Astro because they're using it as a construction parking and a laydown area. So they haven't started that process yet. But when they got approval in October of last year from the BAR, said that yes, you meet all the standards, and the only impediment at that point was they had to get parking, and to get parking, they had demonstrated to the staff and to BAR that they had the capacity to do that. They just didn't, it was not in the agreement. The agreement did not include that number. And so tonight, what's before you would be to change that number. And I think they're also changing the names of some of the entities involved because of the way things have progressed. But the substantive change is that now the city would be clarifying how many parking spaces have to be maintained to satisfy the hotel parking.
Maintained on the Astro site.
On the Astro site, correct. That's correct, John.
Okay, so the solution would be add more stacks.
They don't need to add any more staff because they've already been approved. They've got more than they need at this point.
But you said a minute ago that the spaces for their 60 some odd for their hotel guests, and I guess whatever, and then the Astro added the people using the Astro,
Right.
whatever it's going to become. Total what, 120?
The total number of spaces they need, including the Astro site, is 114.
I think she can clarify behind you.
Right. I just wanted to clarify with John.
Well, no,
The
but
total
I get
number-
all that, but I
there,
mean-
there are two other factors that if you're trying to do the math, and this might help you, John, that our city ordinance has two allowances that we commonly have applied in building situations downtown. Is that properties that have, other than residences that are have a parking requirement, that if they're within 100 feet of on-street parking, then they can they can use a portion of that for their parking credit. Second, if they're on a CAT route, that there can be an administrative reduction of 10%, which Jake provided and is historically provided for any project that is asked for it that's on the CAT route. And so that reduced the number by a handful, which might be where your math was going. I'm not sure how these are all adding up. But again, Abby has the hard numbers, and I can go get you all the parking calculations that you would like to see on this. I have them readily available downstairs. But I guess the salient point for tonight, as I saw it, was to let you know that the hotel event space has been approved and meets code, and their proposal for parking meets all the standards. They're meeting all the required parking, and that the method for meeting that required parking, the combination of surface and robotic parking, have been approved and vetted by the staff and by the Board of Architectural Review. So the only change tonight would be to the number, if that's what y'all want to do.
I have one more question about the height restriction. I know that obviously there has to be, a stairwell elevator that goes to this event space. It looks to me that, and I know you can have, on top of building space for building system and that kind of thing. In this building, is there any habitable space or support space that's going to be up there to support these events, or as events are occurring, they're going to be running up and down the stairs of the elevator to bring food or anything else? Because if there is, I have serious doubts that there's not space that's being utilized up there as indoor space to support the events that's going to be within the height limit of the building. And I think that's a bigger issue that I would like clarified first before we get there. Because, if we approve this and then we find out, well, look, in effect, they have a 72-foot building because they're up there, there's a little support space that they're using for events and that kind of thing, and that doesn't qualify for what goes on top of the roof.
That's correct.
The extra height.
It does not qualify, and there is no such, event space that's enclosed and covered. The only features of the building that exceed the 65-foot height limit are those that are allowed in code, which are mechanical units, the HVAC and things like that, and the elevator shaft and stairway. They had asked for some kind of canopy cover, but as it stands right now, that doesn't meet code, and they've retracted that offer or that request at this time because it would exceed the height.
Can they for an event, can they put a tent up there?
We've discussed that, and we have a lot of trepidation about how that could be done safely. It's not that the tent itself, once up and secure, could be safe, but that moment between when you've unwrapped the thing and you're starting to lash it down, that when I worked at the Botanical Gardens, we had a lot of big weddings out there, and I saw a tent get away by just a gust of wind. So our fire marshal and building official we're currently we don't see a way how that can happen safely, because the only way that I would feel good about it is if I was there to do it myself, and I'm not going to be there to do it myself. And not to say, because there's really no licensed professional tent erectors. We don't have an entity that is bound by some sort of training or standard, or could lose their license if something went wrong. And so at this point, it's not a covered space.
So I have a question to build on something John said. So the hotel, you got all these clearances to do this, but are they going to be, I don't quite want to use the word force, but if I register the hotel, will I be allowed to park anywhere, or will I have to park down at the Astra?
Let me introduce you to, or Alicia, if you want to.
Because this is a whole lot of, now it's too late to do anything about it, and we need to make rent.
You can come on up and speak.
I'm Abby Trammell with Pavilion Development. Can you ask your question again?
So my question is, so you have 67 rooms.
Yes, ma'am.
We have the event space. And my question is, how much, essentially my question is, how are you going to direct people to park down at the Astro instead of taking up already crowded spaces downtown?
They will be valet parked. For guests of the hotel will be valet parked downtown.
They will have to valet park.
Yes.
And for events, again, so what's the capacity of the rooftop event space?
So the maximum occupancy of the rooftop event space is 125 people. But we don't anticipate, events that large a lot. And events will not be valet parked. They will be asked to go straight to the parking lot and will be shuttled to the.
But there's not enough space in the parking lot during an event that has more than, 60 people at the event. You don't have enough parking under this parking plan to house, if the hotel's full and you have an event.
We do meet code.
No. But right now, you got space for 114 down at the Astro.
We have 123.
Well, either one.
Yeah.
But that means, though, that they're shared by the people that are at the Astro. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. So where he was, and just where I'm going right now, so you got 125 people on the roof. So let's just make it real simple. You're going to have 60 cars. Okay. So that means that you can't put 60 more cars down there. 67 residents and 60 cars is 127 cars.
Yeah.
And you got to have cars for the Astro as well.
Yeah. So,
Okay.
so our plan in that scenario, we're talking with Tiger Park, and we have an agreement going with them to use Tiger Park as our event space parking. And
So-
then in that case, we will have our guests go straight to Tiger Park, and they will be shuttled.
But you have an agreement with them.
Yeah. Well, we are working on it.
But either way, this is kind of really where the rubber meets the road on this deal. So either way, if you're coming to an event, you're going to park X, Y, Z, whether it be at Tiger Park or wherever you're going to park, and you're going to be shuttled.
Yes.
Okay, so that, I understand, but there's going to be spillage into the parking deck. There's going to be spillage into the Lutheran Church parking and all that.
Well, spillage and other things too. That gives me a little trepidation. You don't have an agreement. So to John's point, it won't just be spillage. It'll be flat out flood of parking because there'll be nowhere else to go but downtown if they don't have that agreement in place.
Well, I don't think you could approve anything until they have that agreement in place.
Yeah, I agree.
And we do have a verbal agreement. It's just we're getting it in writing.
That would be preferred for me.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this question. Can the agreement be an annually renewed event? This one. Meaning, okay, here's the deal. Let's just say they get an agreement with Tiger Park. And so they're going to be shuttling and all that. And it doesn't work. That's why I'm asking, could it be like a 1 year at a time thing or something?
Hold on a second. So 2 questions. So, and I'll ask them, so has this event space already been built? So if we say no, you have space that's already been built at cost. And 2, if the Tiger Park deal goes through, do you still need these spaces?
We will per code. Yes, I'll answer that one first. We do per code. We have to provide 26 spaces for the event space per code. Right, correct.
No, okay.
That's just an additional.
And
That's on our end.
Right. And has the event space already been built or whatever?
The roof, it is currently under construction.
So we're in an awful position, right? If we vote no, that space cannot be used. Is that accurate?
For events.
For events?
Well, sure. But you say you've already met code at 26.
Yes.
But where are those 26?
At the Astro.
So my
They
math.
meet code if we approve that tonight. If we amend the agreement tonight, they meet code. They don't meet code currently.
No, I understand, but her thinking she's meeting code.
We
Okay?
do meet code
So,
currently.
but wait a minute, let me finish.
For the event.
But
Yes.
67 and 26, the math on that, let me see if I got that. That's roughly 90, a little over 90. And so that means you're going to short the Astro those 26 spots, technically.
Well, the Astro building now has a much less.
Well, I know, but if you want it to be equally successful, there's going to be spaces as well. That's all I'm saying right now. So right now, based on your assumption that you're going to be coded 26, and that it stresses that lot at 93 spots, which then would leave, if I've got my math correct here, 27 for the Astro.
That's correct. And the Astro is required to have 31. 31 is the code requirement for the Astro.
So they'll be short.
Well, then we have the 10% administrative reduction that Todd mentioned, and the on-street parking.
Can I make a recommendation? Unless you all.
Yeah.
My recommendation is, because it sounds like we still have lots of questions and information that we need. So my recommendation maybe is, Todd, you kind of heard some of the information, Andy. Maybe we can get some answers to those questions and also the agreement with, would you say, Tiger Park?
I would say that's the biggest thing.
Yeah,
Like,
I know
if
that's
we-
the agreement.
When
It's
you
not
have an
writing,
agreement from Tiger Park in writing,
In writing, yes.
and that it's gonna be available for every event that you have up there, I'd feel a whole
Feel a
lot
lot better.
So is this something we can bring back to, city council, our meeting next, in 2
Well, we
weeks?
can- If you meet the code, why are you here?
Well, we have to amend the agreement.
So you don't meet the code till this is approved, right?
Can I make a clarification? We do actually meet code currently. We've worked it all out with Todd's study. We've worked out all the numbers. We meet code.
Yeah, we know you meet call, but we have to, as a city, approve this amendment. The second amendment, we have to vote to approve that. So because we need additional parking, that's the second, yes, you may meet code, but as a council, we have to be able to vote on whether or not to approve the second amendment.
But you're saying the 27, you're saying that 27 works for the Astro because you've got this 10% variance.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
We would just like a little more information.
Yeah,
Todd, I
I
would
think
like a
that's
little more
super
information on the Astro itself.
Well, one other thing, if you come
One
back,
step behind, go away from cream.
but if you come back,
everything
if you come
else.
back using Tiger Park, then also provide with us how you plan to shuttle. Is it with golf carts or is it with a bus or what is it?
If I may, I'm Rick Kadek,
That's right.
co-founder of the Shepherd, and I'll also be the general manager in the building. Our interests are aligned. You want a safe thoroughfare, no clogged Sloan Street, or a parking mess caused by the hotel when the hotel is full, or mathematically, we also have an event going on. Our interests are aligned. We wouldn't be booking, if the math is the Astro has X and we're at 1.25X, we've got a problem. So that's why we're getting these arrangements with Tiger Park. And again, we've got a verbal, we'll come back to you with some type of formal agreement there. But I just wanted to state, I think those who may have been on that very first bar meeting in 2019, we want to be good corporate citizens. We want to do the right thing. I mean, I'm sure you know the focus of the hotel and why we're doing what we're doing. That permeates everything. So as it relates to parking, I mean, in the day-to-day operation of the hotel, if we're going to have a large event on the rooftop and we have a full hotel, we have to take care of our guests. So the good news is our interests are absolutely aligned in that particular case. So we will secure the additional parking elsewhere to make a seamless event for the guests who are on the rooftop and a seamless transition for guests who need their cars in and out for the hotel. So I just wanted to give the council that absolute assurance, and anything that you're going to be doing with the Shepherd Hotel, that's thematically where we stand.
Well, just an assumption, and I guess it's more or less a concern because I think it's anticipated. And I'm a member of the University Lutheran Church, okay, right across the street. And so our surface lot on the right-hand side of the church is prime for people to park. And so, that's fine. And I don't know whether Chief and them, they tow up there on a regular basis or not. But if we come up there on Sunday morning and there's half a dozen cars in there, which is our concern. Well, I know you shake your head, it won't happen, but you can't control what people do. And once they get that car back out, they'll get towed. I can assure you they'll get towed.
And by the way, our job as the event provider, if there is a conflict on a Sunday morning or whatever it might be, would simply be to inform everybody in advance, let them know that the chief's got the tow truck backed up, but this is where one would go. And again, that's just part of all of the hospitality process. And we want to make sure that someone has an event at the hotel, everyone enjoys it, and they've got to be able to retrieve their car or park seamlessly. So, I think I'm just piling on right now, but our interests are absolutely aligned, and we will know regularly. Parking is always a major part of the event planning with whoever is the provider of the event. We will let them know, for example, go to this site and we will shuttle you in. On any invites, make sure that you go to the Astro or possibly to Tiger Park or one of the other, because we have been in touch with the churches as well. Even if it's just like a drop-off and then they walk over to the hotel, and then we park their car and bring it to another location. So all things considered, we'll bring back to the council.
But I think the problem is not that you're not on the same page we are. I think we are. That doesn't mean the people in your hotel are on the same page we are. We're not concerned about your behavior. We're concerned about the behavior of the people in your hotel who maybe don't have the same level of respect for the community and the neighborhood as you do. So I think, honestly, I vote no tonight. I don't want to vote no tonight. So it's to your best interest to come back and make this case. And Bob asked a good point. The Tiger Park isn't just to have an agreement, but it's for any time. My guess is on football weekends, they're going to be as crowded with events as you are, and maybe there will be on the time you need them the most is when they're least available. So please come back and clean up all of that. I'm still baffled by the numbers, but it's not any matter of trust in you. It's knowing human behavior, and human behavior is midnight, you're going to park where you can park. You're not going to worry about it.
I'm a retired banker. There's a couple bankers on the studio. We always operate on stress, basically a stress test. You don't operate, like it's going to be this way. You always want to make certain you stress it. And so when he just said what he said about a football weekend, you got an event, a football weekend, and everything else going on, where those cars? That's all I'm saying. I'm not.
And when this comes back, Todd, I just need to see what that Astro drawing looks like if we have it somewhere. I know that was before my time. I would just like to take a look at it.
I promise you that's going to be difficult.
We're aligned, but again, we come to you saying we meet code, as Mr. Stedman had started off. We also recognize that there's the stress test of the reality check, so we're there.
And we appreciate you for
Thank you.
standing in and standing in. So, Mary, we don't need to do anything at this point, but we're gonna move into the next area.
I would just like some clarification. Alicia, you said that you would like me to come back or report back. You mentioned the drawing, which I can do. And
since it was before my time, I need to just dig it up. Maybe is the drawing of the Astro of how that parking is supposed to
Right,
look.
I've got that site plan, and then
We've
also
been
our.
writing.
Big what?
We've been writing with Tiger Park.
I already checked on that. I sent an email just that.
Oh, thank you. I figured it was up.
What I can provide a drawing of the site plan that shows the total number that they're approved for. And to John's point, I see where you were coming from, John, that they, for lack of a better term, they have the ability to meet code. The site plans and the required parking all are compatible, but the shared parking could be considered part of the code. It's not a part of it. It is a part of our parking requirement, and that so they meet the code by way of numbers, but they have to have the agreement in order to use the parking. And so that's
this
a point
was
of
a
clarification.
special exception from the get-go of how this is going. Yeah.
This is I think the only shared parking agreement we've done in the city. It's been on the books for probably 20 years, and the way this one finally worked, I believe, was when the hotel property acquired the Astro property, because usually it broke down between two property owners not being able to meet in the middle. But anyway, back to what y'all need. The drawing, and I have a kind of a cheat sheet, if you will, an explanation for how we arrived at the parking number of requirements. Is there anything else that you would like?
You said on the email, the type of agreement.
That'd be it?
Thank you, Todd.
That's what I'm asking. We're not taking any action right now.
You could do it one way or the other. You could call for a motion. If nobody makes a motion, just move on. Or you can, somebody can make a motion to postpone it to a later date. Either way.
All right. Somebody want to make a motion to postpone it? All right. So we'll bring it up. Those are all our action items. All right, we have the council reports. New business.
Just want to thank everybody who came last conversation with council. I think it was wonderful, great turnout, great conversation. We are moving to the third Thursday instead of the fourth, so we're not conflicting with the police advisory board, which I think is March 17th. I like the way this has been working, where we have it at a location with someone sponsoring it. And even though we were at CAM, the conversation was not just CAM related, which was great. So if you know any groups, churches, any group whatsoever, even commercial places, if they want to host us, hosting just means having seats and chairs for us. And just let me know that. I think, Allie, thank you for coming. Andy, thank you for coming. I think it was useful for all of us. My guess is you already started on some of the items that people brought up. So anyway, we will always going to be the third Thursday instead of the fourth.
Anybody else? Well, just want to make an announcement. The City of Clemson, Clemson Area African American Museum, and the Commission on Black Experience from Clemson University. We're sponsoring an event next Monday, the 28th. It's going to be at CAM. It's a luncheon, so if you're free to attend, it's from 11:30 to 1:30. It's a historical historical program on Black cultural expression. So we want to talk about the different celebrations throughout the year, such as Juneteenth, Kwanzaa, the importance of Black History Month, also food. Hopefully we will have performances, speaker. So of course we want to bring the community into see the exhibit that Angela has put together out there. So if you haven't had a chance to see it, I hope you get a chance to go out there and take a look at it. It's amazing to see all the schools that have been from the time.
Can we email her to tell her we're going? Should we let her know we're coming?
You can let us know. Yeah, you can tell me or Angela. Either way, she and I are working on it together.
So, is there a fee for the meal?
No.
Okay.
It's provided.
Okay, it's 11:30 to 1:30. Okay.
The city as well.
That's all I got on.
I did have one thing. I want to congratulate John Poole for winning his age group in the inaugural Cupid Shuffle 5K.
He was the only one in his age group?
We have to clarify one thing. I was the only male in that category. Thank you. And I walked. But I did beat Elaine.
So you finished last as well.
It was truly a successful event, so thank you to the city for helping bring that to fruition. We had over 200 participants, and so it was really a good start. So we're definitely planning to continue this event, and we're hoping it's much bigger and more next year. Thank you all. I'm turning back over to lunch.
28th.
February 28th, 11:31.
Okay. Thank you very much for filling in. I'll slip down. Any other new business?
Just glad you could make it.
You come adjourn.
Just hoping we'd be done.
Thanks. Thank you both. Thank you all. All right. With that, would somebody like to make a motion to adjourn?
So moving. Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor, raise your right hand. All right. Have a great evening.